Namaskar. Hello and welcome to PGurus channel. I'm your host 𝙒𝙖𝙩𝙦. After a gap of several months, we have with us again Professor R. Vaidyanathan, also fondly called as Professor RV. He has been one of the pillars on which PGurus was founded, and we are deeply indebted to him for all the help he rendered during our early years. So let's welcome Professor RV. Namaskaram, sir. How are you?
I am quite okay. Delighted to meet with you here, and also delighted to see the progress of PGurus. It has, it has really grown very well actually, with significant amount of traffic as well as the experts' inputs and other thing. And I always happy to interact with PGurus audience because they are very, very what you may loosely call knowledgeable and provide insightful comments and other thing. And thanks to you, Ayer, and thanks to Sachin, our technical come programming come everything expert, who is the back office, or what you may loosely call the backbone of the organization. Thank you very much.
Sir, today let us sift it a little bit more. You are economically very savvy about which area contributes to what, who stands to benefit whenever there is a conflict, who stands to lose. This Niger conflict now is threatening to go past that small country and spread to the rest of Africa. Do you feel that this white man's burden narrative that the West used to put out, has it now started turning against them? Is this one of the reasons for this conflict? This is your class again, sir. It's like you are taking a class for your IIM students. Many of students. So I leave it to you. Yield you the floor, sir.
This Niger, many people confuse it with Nigeria. Anyhow, they are adjacent countries. First of all, they have share the common culture as well as language. The major difference is Nigeria was a British colony and Niger was a French colony. So Niger, follows the French customs, French systems and other things. Nigeria follows the British. And unlike, for instance, Mauritius, which was a colony of Britain for 100 years, colony of France for another 100 years. So it was both. And as Mauritians always proudly say that our heart is French, our brain is British, whatever it is. Anyhow, Niger and Nigeria are not like that. It shares a very largest land border with Nigeria actually. And both of them have got a significant amount of natural resources like your uranium, petrol, gold, so many things actually. And the name comes from the river Niger. I think, if I am right, it's the third biggest river in Africa, other than that Nile and Congo and other thing. Is a very large river. It's a western part of Africa, very strictly northwest type of thing, and full of coups, counter coups, and it's a terrible type of, if I may use that word, place. And periodically it is told democracy is restored, and we know that 99.5% vote for the democratically elected leader. I always used to wonder who is that remaining 0.5% who doesn't vote. So somebody told me that could be his own family people who knows him well and other thing. Anyhow, and general election is generally understood there as elections where generals are elected. That's all, like Pakistan. So that is a type of, it's a very, very volatile situation. And 7 out of 9 colonies are francophone. And most of them use euro, even today, euro franc as the coin. The recently seized powers are Mali and Burkina Faso. Burkina Faso is the country some of you may remember. Narasimha Rao quietly went there when there was acute crisis in Delhi. He was there was a no confidence motion. He will be removed, and he quietly went to a country called Burkina Faso, and Ouagadougou or something like that. Its capital. Sorry, I'm not able to pronounce it even because the why he went there, nobody knows. He suddenly became friendly to Burkina Faso because I'm sure the journalists in Delhi were not able to track him in terms of, it's not very easy to have so-called, what is that called? Ground zero report from Burkina Faso, another thing. He stayed there for a couple of days and quietly came back. Anyhow, and this French economist basically says these French colonies are tremendously useful, particularly because Niger has got significant amount of uranium, and many of the audience of this channel at least doesn't require to be explained the role of uranium in the contemporary world of science and other thing. It also has got good amount of gold, but a large portion of it is the desert. That's another major issue, ability to run down another thing. And coups are not very uncommon. Actually, assassination and coups are conducted by US and UK for a long period of time. For instance, in the 60s, many of you may remember or might have forgotten, Lumumba was assassinated, removed and punished in Sudan. So many other countries, Arupmai in Kenya, Mobutu in Zaire. So like that, so many. It's a question of who conducts it. If it is done by US or UK, it is considered as a regime change for peace and prosperity and other thing. If it is done by local thugs, it is obviously meant for destabilizing democratically elected government and other thing. Anyhow, so recently, some of you may know or may not know, in St. Petersburg, there was a Russia-Africa forum. And surprisingly, something like a very large number, 40, 45 or more, I don't recollect the exact number, 90% of the African countries attended it. And, they all told Russia is to play a very massive role. Russia also told that they will get grain free. This Ukraine conflict has impacted in terms of Ukrainian grains reaching. Russia says EU is the main beneficiary and not poor countries of Africa. Anyhow, Russia is committed to give 5 or 6 African countries free grains. And it has signed lots of MOUs and lots of understanding and other things. So this is, and this country, Niger, they say it has to be pronounced in a French fashion with the E. There is a difference between Nigeria and Niger. So anyhow, I am not very good at pronunciations. Anyhow, Niger is, it has got a lot of common borders with Nigeria, Chad, then your Mali, then on the other side, northern side with Tunisia and all that. So, and incidentally, it's one of the largest in Western Africa in terms of land mass. And the population is relatively very small, something like, if I remember, 2.5 crore or something. Whereas Nigeria, landmass is not so large, but its population is very large. Nigeria is around, something like 25 crore or something. So there is a, huge amount of. Now what has happened is the president of Niger has been thrown out by its. Originally, it was told the palace guards. Later on, the army also stepped in, and army told General Chianin is the group leader, and army told they have taken over the country, and surprisingly, maybe sponsored, huge number of citizens of Niger paraded outside their capital Niamey in terms of supporting the coup. Opposing the earlier president who was deposed, and France, French embassy was surrounded. There was a threat, and of course France took away all its citizens as well as EU citizens out of Niger for safety and other things. Now there is one Economic Cooperation Council for Western Africa. Those countries threatened. Today, I think, if I am right, is the last day of the threat to invade Niger or take some appropriate military steps in order to bring back that old fellow, that president. And France has encouraged it. See, France doesn't want to send directly its own army because it's concerned. Now you see most of these countries, including US and other thing, nobody wants to send their army because any one body bag coming into JFK will create such a huge amount of what one can call crisis in US. Nobody wants their citizens to be killed. So they want to use the proxies. So the these Western African Union leaders are all egged on by France. You invade, we will support you. Like Ukraine, we will give you arms, we will give you various type of benefits, facilities and other. Incidentally, Nigeria and Niger both are having 90% Muslim population. And there is an adjacent country, Mali as well as Burkina Faso. There is also a Islamic terrorist attack. One doesn't know whether these terrorists are sponsored by the Western nations. It's a very tricky situation. When there are supposed to be good terrorists and bad terrorists. Like Lyndon Johnson jokingly used to say they are also SOB, but they are our SOBs. While the other group is their SOB. So our SOB will fight their SOB. So, for instance, simple, Taliban, as long as they were fighting Russians, they were good terrorists. They were considered as good terrorists, and all sorts of help were given to them. Once Russia was defeated and sent out, then you have the Taliban becoming a bad terrorist. You can see here, Niger, on one side, 𝙤𝙤. This 𝙤𝙤 is not the 𝙤𝙤 about which there was a lot of discussion in US after the Bush election. They couldn't count properly, and it was considered as those are the edge of the ballot papers. They were also called Chad. But this Chad is actual country. You can see the area of Niger. Algeria is on the north. Incidentally, Algeria is not enthusiastic about army being sent into Niger to restore the order. Nigeria president is enthusiastic, but the Senate of Nigeria is the southern portion of border of Niger. Senate of Nigeria is not very enthusiastic because nobody wants to get into other people's issues and problem as of today. The French and the US feels that the interference into Niger is very critical and important because this will create a bad precedent otherwise in many other countries also for them to be. And obviously from the reaction of the French and US, it's both of them have got army bases in Niger. It's very, very clear that the coup is not favorable to them. That is something very, very important. So they feel that this would give rise to other type of coups in adjacent places and other things. Some of you may remember Tony Blair in his famous end of the century speech at Chicago. He gave actually where large number of business people, stockbrokers, investment bankers, credit rating agencies were present, something like 400, 500. He gave a speech, end of the century speech. He clearly enunciated that the civilized nation, by that he means white people, have every right to interfere into the others whenever there is a crisis and other thing. In other words, he told the era of sovereignty of the nation is coming to an end. It's not. It's nothing called my internal affair. You cannot come in another thing. We have for instance, Iraq. Many of you will know so much was told, so much was written by economists, Times, New York Times, Washington Post, and political leaders, including in UK and USA, that Iraq is the greatest threat to humanity by having weapons of mass destruction. They invaded, Saddam Hussein was killed, and they couldn't even find one bottle of hydrochloric acid, leave alone weapons of mass destruction. That is the type of thing. And Iraq is in a mess. And whenever this invasion take place and thing, it's left to be in a messy situation. Like Lebanon is in a mess, Iraq is in a mess. So this is the type of thing. So 𝙤𝙤 is they are worried about Niger situation because it might set an example to many other countries in the region. They don't want to send, for instance, Mali. They actually asked the French to withdraw. They told the French troops are not doing any good here, and it is much better they withdraw. The only note of caution in all this is uh, India should not get entangled. You may be surprised, why should India be entangled? It will be told India should send a peacekeeping force to Niger and other things under UN. We are very loyal UN soldiers. We have sent peacekeeping to various places. Last 15 years, I am told there is a payment pending from UN. Actually, the payment is very attractive, but it is all in the form of IOU. They have not actually paid. And our army people and others are also very enthusiastic because they get a good amount of per diem and other thing. For that alone, they don't go. It's because of the Indian government commitment, right?
When they get paid, there's a when they get paid.
There's the UN payment is pending for the last nearly 20 years. They are supposed to be paid immediately, and domestically they may be paid by the Indian government, but that is shown as receivable from UN. Incidentally, UN government has got pending payment from several EU and countries and US itself. India is one of the prompt paymasters to UN. This UN is I shouldn't use the word big racket. It's a talking shop. Nobody gives any respect to UN. UN is going on telling, this should be done, that should. Who is listening to UN? You tell me. And today UN is telling it is not agreeable to the coup in Niger. Who is, okay, you are not agreeable. That's good. Okay, keep that type of an attitude is there. And all those, the military people, I'm not trying to belittle their achievement, but the type of number of medals they have got is unbelievable, actually. I don't know how many great global wars they have participated or whatever it is. All of them, their whole chest is full of medal. In in Chinatown in Chennai, you can get most of those medals. Actually, you can put it in. Anyhow, they are very clear. So India, under no circumstance, should get involved in this. Either as this bait will be told, if you participate in this, you will get the United Nations Security Council seat, and that is all. This is totally useless. United Nations is a huge talking shop in the morning and a big pub in the night. That's the only thing I can tell. There is nothing. If UN is closed, what will happen? Somebody told, one of my American colleagues responded, the massive loss will be to the New York pubs, because most of them will get because people drink like nobody's business under UN what one can call billing system. So the whole thing is it has lost its and BRICS is will overtake UN in the next 3 to 5 years. In another context, we will look at it. So hopefully the troops are not sent into Niger. In between, Niger did another thing. They asked Wagner, the private army which is floated by the Russians and which is available on what you call sale. Whoever pays you, you will come. It's a mercenary army, and incidentally, large portion of military is privatized these days. When US invaded Iraq, almost all of their activity were private trucks, private aircraft, private. The only thing was the soldiers who were, and that also Wagner has privatized. So there is nothing. So it's a private thing, and of course, wars are no more fought by these Western countries sending their physical troops. They sit and then press the button and try to. I was in US. I was worried that time. Instead of pressing I for Iraq, they shouldn't press I for India in the computer console. My colleague told, "Don't worry, Nathan." And most of the fellows who sit and press are all Indians only, so they know what to press and what not to. So the warfare itself is completely changed. It's a embedded journalists are sent along in the Iraq war. If you see in this Ukraine war, there are not many embedded journalists at all. Actually, there is not much of a, what we may loosely call ground situation reports at all. Some people say that this Zelensky gets pictures made in United Studios in US, and then that is distributed as a great achievement and other thing. Universal Studios, has replaced actually. And nowadays, with a lot of this morphing, with artificial intelligence, you never know what is the type of reporting you get from the actual war front. Anyhow, the situation in Niger is very serious, and it could get into a very large West African configuration. Already, that place is a very dynamite bomb. We have the Burkina Faso, Mali, Chad. All of them have got various types of terrorist groups. IS Khorasan, IS of this, that region and other thing. So it's already a tinderbox. You don't require any more petrol to be poured there in order to fuel this actually. So we can watch. One shouldn't use the word very lightly. We can watch, and then what else we can? Better not to get entangled in this, French Euro. Because I will tell you last point. Europe has lost its elan vital, or the reason for its existence. It's not bound by language, it's not bound by commonality of races, nothing. Originally, 1980, the Project Europe, originally it was envisioned as a, Christian ethics and Christian roots for Europe. That's the reason why Turkey was always kept out. Turkey was never considered as part of the. Turkey could be part of NATO. That's a different thing. NATO is a very peculiar animal. It's called a North Atlantic Treaty, but it is moved far, far away from Atlantic actually. It is now with Ukraine, and maybe India and South Korea also can be included in that. Nothing wrong about it. Anyhow, EU was originally conceived as a Christian roots. Now, only 20% of the Europeans consider themselves to be Christian. They tick what is known as a nun, that box, which religion you belong to, another. Nobody. So Europe is having its own grave problem of finding commonality. The one way to solve this issue is to identify enemies. Once you identify enemies, imaginary or real, then you become more united. So the new enemy is Russia. A new enemy could be some of these countries in Africa. Of course, China is the biggest new enemy. So this is how they think they can. And in between, some are taking their own route. Germany has brought about a 60-page note on how to have relationship with China. We will see that in some other context. Point I want to stress is this shouldn't become a major conflict engulfing large portions of Africa, because that would be very disastrous for the stability and peace in the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor RV. And now let us take a few questions from our viewers. Mr. Bharani wants to know, Africa has control over the largest natural mineral.
The impact it will create if there is blockade. China established a total. This is another New York Times, Washington Post propaganda. China can never, for that matter, any country cannot establish total dominance in Africa. Many of the African I have interacted, I have taught there also, are wary of China. Let's be very clear. Actually, they are much more comfortable about India, because we are sort of a much more soft and jolly-go-lucky type of groups. China has got their own ideological mooring and other. They have a huge amount of mineral resource, absolutely no doubt about it. And that is why the whole EU and US is interested in that. But how long? Because Africa is awakening. Let's be very clear about it. This is now the century of yellow and brown. After that, it will be black. So white, yellow, brown, black. That is the way in which the Kali cycle is moving. And so many of the African leaders, African economists and other things are realizing that their for instance, France doesn't have any gold. All gold of France is from Mali. They have mined it and taken it away. And France is proudly proclaiming itself to be a country with a good amount of gold reserve. Where from? So Africa is realizing it and only hope that they are able to consolidate their issue and then work on it. Okay.
Subramaniam Vishwanathan wants to know what do the Niger people want? Niger, whatever, is the coup against their wishes.
This is a very tricky question in any of these volatile country. What does the people want? I know there will be one election and that fellow will win 99.95% of the votes. But as of now, visual images shown on the television reveal a large number of the people are pro-coup. They are anti-France as of now. They have assembled in Niamey. It's not a great populated country, 2 crore. Maybe at least 30-40 lakh would have assembled in that their capital and supporting the coup leaders. Let's wait and see. Who is, as of now, doesn't seem to be against their wishes.
Ritik the Great
Why
wants to know.
communism failed in Africa? Why communism failed all over the world? That you first ask. Why only in Africa, right? After the fall of Berlin Wall, it's not a ideology which can be sustained. Yeah.
Next question, please. Subramanian Vishwanathan again. What the people of Nigeria want is the ongoing coup. I think it's the same question. Yeah.
Yeah.
What is the UN role when such things happen? Ultimately, children and people are affected.
100% agreed. But the UN is now what you may loosely call a toothless tiger. It's nothing. UN goes on telling something. This should be done, that should be done, and it's not done actually. Many of the recent activities of US and Europe are outside UN actually. It's not as per the UN sanctioners. And so there is not, I wouldn't say UN, because anything UN wants to do and UNSC, Security Council, and one country or another, China, or Russia, or US or UK, they will veto it. So it's not, UN doesn't really represent the aspirations of the entire world. Let's be very clear. Because it excludes big countries like Brazil, India, Indonesia, so many big countries, population wise. It has some countries like England and which are all, in the Security Council, I'm telling, which are all the legacy of the Second World War. Okay.
Next question, please. Magnet Ranga wants to know, Namaskaram, how sensible would it be to have agreements with nations like Niger, given that next coup may be not too far?
Yeah. The agreements and other things are not worth the paper in which it is written. That military dictator, whoever, some can sign, some can put thumb impression with your agreement. It's not going to work out. That's not, unless stability comes, unless some sort of a long-term, impact is created.
Next question, please. Karthik Swaminathan wants to know, what's the approach for India in Africa, which is trying to assert itself now? Will it become difficult for us to trade with them?
Trading with them is not at all difficult. We have always been doing trade with them for the last 150, 200 years. And we have also got some good projects in some of the relatively stable countries, I would say. Tanzania, Kenya, some of the, I won't say that all the countries of Africa, South Africa, we have some amount of investments and we are executing projects like port and railways and other things. But otherwise, it's not very big, even though they are enthusiastic. Let's wait and see what happens in the BRIC conference at South Africa, where our PM is expected to visit physically. Okay.
Next question, please. How's it going? Wants to know. The literate Keralites are ruled by communists and are still not learning. The economy is in tatters there.
Yeah, that's correct. That's a what one can call tragedy of Kerala, right? It's not that they are not still not learning or anything. It's a complex situation in Kerala. It's not just love for communism. It has got huge amount of caste and other subcaste and other type of configuration. So that is also, and religion. All these are big cocktail in Kerala. Okay.
Next question, please. Sir, Africa is rich in natural resources. Are we in a good position to strike a deal with African countries to mine its resources? How important would that be for India's growth? Berlin wants to know.
Obviously, it's a very great important, and we have to pick and choose those African countries which are relatively more stable and which have got a more type of continuity in government. Definitely not the Sahel region of Western Africa, which is very volatile and coup prone. Yeah.
Yeah, Professor RV, in anytime you have to do commerce with these countries, these have to go through Paris. For example, if it is Niger, it has to go through Paris. So there is an exchange inefficiency that comes into place. When countries like this sign up for, like, for example, UPI, wouldn't it not make it easy also, because Indian exporters can easily export to them? Like, vaccine is a big deal, maybe food, maybe anything else. I mean, motorcycles, two-wheelers, these things are much sought after in Africa. India is one of the biggest suppliers of two-wheelers in
Yeah, I think as long as slowly the exchange is not exclusively based on dollar, but based on several other independent currencies, it's going to dramatically change the way in which the trade is conducted and other things. Let's wait and see how it develops.
Next question, please. Arvind Gopalan wants to know if UN has. Oh, Arun wants to know. Arun wants to know, as US economy declines and with de-dollarization, will military strength of US NATO decline? What are your views on deep state?
It's a reverse actually, sir. Arun, the military strength of US and NATO, they are using in order to keep the rather reduce the economic decline and de-dollarization. This is what they are. US has got 130 spots all over the world, countries. They have got their military bases. So it's not so very easy. It's a their military strength is not going to decline because huge amount of their benefit comes out of producing weapons and selling it. For instance, in this Ukraine war, the major beneficiary is the small arm manufacturer in US actually, who have been sending a lot of this ammunition and so much leakage. Periodically, it comes in the paper. So many $1 billion have not accounted for another thing. So it's a very difficult thing. Their military strength to be significantly declined. Okay.
Arvind Gopalan wants to know if UN has no relevance, then what is the relevance of India becoming the member of the UN Security Council?
It's a good question. It's it's like the what you call. It's like the last few overs in the cricket match. In that you also go and you are encouraged to play. That's a type of thing. It's nothing much unless there is a dramatic transformation in the functioning of the UN. Unless Brazil, India, Germany, Indonesia, they are all made members with full veto powers, so not just for those existing countries. It's not. It will give us a good, what one feel good factor. Internally, you can say we have become a Security Council member, and we can advertise everywhere. We are UN Security Council members. That's all. Nothing much is going to come out of it, right?
How's it going? Wants to know. We have traditional connections and diaspora in Africa too. Aren't our diaspora influential there, like in the US, UK?
Not much influence. Our diaspora is by and large not influential at all. Let us be very clear.
Including
They are
US.
primarily interested in some building temples and having puliodare and curd rice on Sundays, and they keep away from. Very recently, only in US, I would say very recently, mean last couple of maybe 1 decade or 2 decade only, the Indian diaspora has taken interest in politics in US. Prior to that, they were there here and there, but today, to the extent of even, this 𝙒𝙖𝙧𝙤𝙪 Ramaswamy is, is wanting to contest for presidency of US. It's a very interesting thing. Very recently. Otherwise, you see, if Obama says that Happy Diwali, our diaspora is very happy. That is the ultimate achievement. They say that he has told Happy Diwali. It's no. Similarly, in the African context, our diaspora has been very, very. They do their business and other thing. Some of them have got bad names also by getting involved with these corrupt leaders in South Africa and Nigeria and other thing. Otherwise, they do their business, and some places, not all, some places Indians are not liked also in Africa because they feel Indians to be these traders and exploiters and other thing. The local level.
The British settled them there, Kenya,
Huh?
Uganda, and the British settled them there along the
Yeah.
eastern southern Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
South Africa in a big way. So those are the places where you can find a lot of Indian Americans.
Yeah.
Another person that you should watch out for, Professor RV. This is interesting because she is a Guyanese Hindu, Jennifer Rajkumar. Watch out
Correct.
for her. She's really going places. This is another new generation, like the same age as Vivek Ramaswamy. Very, very promising candidate. I will try and get her on our channel. Again, viewers, we need your help, viewers. Look, Professor RV's time is gold, and I have hardly 300 of you watching this program. Masala, we get 1,000, and actual matter, you get 300. Not fair. Not fair at all.
But one thing I hear, of course, Guyanese is separate. I was reading somewhere this Trinidad Tobago.
Yes.
I always had a feeling that they had a good amount of Hindus.
50% Hindus, sir.
So much is being talked about Islamic influence in these countries.
They are getting converted rapidly in Trinidad and Tobago, one of the countries which is...
I'm very surprised, actually.
Yeah, sir, what happened was there used to be an agrarian economy growing sugarcane. Unfortunately, the scale yields went up in other places, Brazil, for example, and the sugarcane industry has completely moved away from Trinidad and Tobago, and with that, the economy collapsed. And it is not a great, tourist destination either. It's not like, for example, Cayman Islands, Bahamas, where they are small, they are prosperous because they are tax havens. There's a lot of prosperity going around. Americans like to go down there because it feels like an extension. Trinidad and Tobago looks more like India.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this Islamic influence is very, interesting. The growth of, what is taking place.
Sir, all it takes is a few $1 million and a rabid preacher, and, the rest, as they say, is history, sir.
This is age-old thing in that, Vietnam time, what are called Pentagon Papers. That time the release, and one of the most important observation made, I am not getting his name, what was the advisor, who is considered as a deep throat, and one of the thing was follow the money trail. He said, always follow the money trail. You will get the answers. If you want answers for many of your questions, follow the money trail. So same thing in Chad, same thing in Guyana, same thing in various other places, right? So thank you, Iyer. What are your views with the deed, or will it cause any drastic changes? I don't think so. It won't make much of because much of our stock market is functioning today. 20% maybe the FII trader turnover and other thing. Otherwise, our domestic companies are doing very well. Domestic market is also very large, so it won't have any major changes in the valuation.
Thank you so much, Professor RV, and that was a wonderful session, sir, and we hope to have you back very frequently from here on. Professor RV had some other things that was keeping him busy. He came out with a new version of his book, Caste, the New Capital. It is available now in, sir, Penguin, right?
Penguin. Amazon is selling it, actually.
So you can get the revised copy. I think there is a small section of mine in that. Is it true, sir? You use some of the stuff from mine, right? Yeah. No, it's okay, sir. I mean, it's a pride. It's an honor to have, you considered me good enough, worthy of putting my content on your book. So I'm very happy for that, sir. Thank you so much. And viewers, please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. Professor RV, I'll also let you know that the videos that you put out, right, about when you are the guest, these things keep growing because there's a lot of ex-IIMers, IITers, whoever, go
Yeah,
through the system. And then it continues to happen. Sometimes
very good.
probably it goes into a WhatsApp group, then everybody watches and comments. So you will hear from all your students, sir. I encourage you to look at the comments and feel free to engage with
Sure.
them. And it will be a wonderful experience. Thank you so much, sir. Namaskar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. God bless you.